New words, a new week, a new beginning, a new Monday. A new Monday, Artist Journal, July 22nd, 2024, broadcasting from Berlin, Germany. My name's Adrian Pocobelli. Sailing full steam ahead under cloudy skies here. Finally, give the UV light a break. Give our bodies a break from all the UV light that so many of us are taking in. Shout out to Mom. Thanks for buying me a hat back when I visited in June to Canada. That I have put that hat to good use. So big shout out to Mom. So let's go as I continue to try and keep these shows. I figured, like I've been talking to people, it's like I wonder if the show is being held back to a certain degree by them being so long. Like, I think we have to, sometimes you have to take the view of the viewer rather than the person putting the show together. And it's like, what's the ideal time here? 30 minutes, I'd say, is the ideal time, but I think it's just not possible to kind of get everything that we like to cover here in 30 minutes. But I think 40 to 45 minutes is an ideal worth striving for. Because then you don't open it up on your YouTube or whatever and see an hour and a half and go skip. Right? So I think it's worth trying for. Let's see what we can do today. So here's Rosetto, an artist I've been covering here on this program from probably episode, I'd guess, 60 or so, very early on. Good memories we have together, Rosetto, on this show. Has left many comments over the years. So just awesome to see Rosetto back, taking a little break, right? Like this one came out recently. And you know what's interesting? Again, stuff that kind of, quote unquote, everybody's an artist as far as I'm concerned, or can be an artist. But for people that don't make art, this is kind of like, here's a work that just came out in July 12th, right? And then there's this work, there's Tezos. I think this one, when did this come out? February 6th. So a couple of works out, right? But these are almost echoes of works that were done over here. Right? Probably half-finished works that Rosetto goes, okay, I might as well finish these and let's get these done. There seems to be something a little different going on here, which is why I want to highlight it here. It's quite beautiful. There is a minimal thing. We see a reduction in the amount of colors. You see almost like, and a nice contrast here. Complementary colors, blue and yellow. Or is it violet and yellow? But basically almost on the opposite, blue and orange, violet and yellow. But basically, it's a very good technique, again, when you go across the color wheel to the complementary and then you go one over. And that's basically what we have here. We have blue and yellow. Of course, blue and orange, and then you just go one bit further and you're at yellow. Okay, very powerful, beautiful contrast. Of course, if you have the equal amount of blue and orange together, that's a clash. Right? So, but you put blue and yellow, that's a little easier. And so here we are. So less icons and less color. A more minimal Rosetto here after a break. In a sense, the benefits of taking breaks in a series, you come back with new eyes and new ideas, interestingly. And here also kind of a suggestive, like a knife here within this skull that is beautifully painted. Like it looks, and repeated here. Like it looks like Rosetto has a very interesting style. Digital collage and digital drawing, right? So what I wonder, and I remember I think Rosetto saying, basically copyright-free works, but I wonder to myself if Rosetto is painting over top also. Like, is Rosetto painting this hand, or is this, a sampled hand from somewhere else? And even this beautiful skull, and the reason I say that is because Rosetto's works do have a certain texture, you might say, a kind of painterly texture. Even we see it in the technique, the process, the art of Rosetto's work here in kind of, you see it, in the, I don't know if you can see it, but what you have here is there's texture even in this kind of matte black and in the kind of off purple here, the blue purple. And then here you have the bright blue. And so there's a bit of texture here too. An interesting repetition of the skull here kind of almost like cycling through here. Here it's a circle, and then the skull almost cycling through. We see the bottom half here, maybe the top half here, a little bit missing in between. But then we have these windows, maybe with the missing area, not sure. So just a cool, interesting digital, truly digital collage here. A beautiful work. And just a final thing on this piece. The color, Rosaceo always manages to get a kind of harmony in the works. And you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of making work. This is what I used to do. I'll do it once in a while now, but I don't find the filters on Instagram as kind of useful anymore as I used to. But I remember, say back in 2017, if I was making a work on my phone, sometimes I would purposefully not worry about the color. I'd even go in randomly. Let's bring in random color, random color, random color, with the idea, part of my process in those works, often in the Peloponnesian Wars, but Peloponnesian War and other works too, the idea was, that's okay if none of these work. It can be garish and whatever, because I'm going to put it in the Instagram filter, which is going to harmonize this stuff, and then I can get the slider and decide how much of the filter I want to be used, and then I can kind of harmonize all these kind of wild colors, garish even at times, and then all of a sudden I have a beautiful harmony. It's almost like putting notes that are random for music into like a scaler or something, and then everything is scaled. Right? Everything is harmonized. It's harmonic. So when I see Rosaceo's work, and just to back up, like look at how kind of wonderfully harmonically colored it is, I want to say. And just across, you do tend to see a fairly consistent, you might say, kind of color harmony. So just kind of interesting. It makes me wonder, is there a filter sometimes used, which is a great technique. I'm a huge fan, say, of using, sometimes you can use if you have an iPhone, you can use the Apple filter and whatnot. So all to say, great to have Rosaceo back. Let's continue a beautiful, beautiful work to start the show there. Love it. Let's continue. Lily Illo, fantastic AI artist. Again, we've been following probably since, once I made the AI breakthrough over here with Strange Thing, Lily Illo was not far behind. Of artists, probably shown dozens of her work here as well on this show over the episode. So thrilled to finally get her on as a guest on our live series on Wednesdays. So that, I believe she's out of Australia. So that might be pretty late for her. So big shout out and thank you to Lily Illo. Come check it out. Should be another interesting discussion on art and, in this case, AI. Of course, if you're not familiar with her work, this is kind of classic Lily Illo, a surreal chair, an AI distorted chair, playing with the mistakes, kind of in a glitch-like way with the mistakes of AI. Oftentimes, and having a beautiful kind of painterly style, especially look at how beautiful this looks on the website. Very professional looking situation here. And even these wonderful kind of crops that are going on, all sorts of stuff. I love just like this blue stripe. So just a little hint of what she's up to. Big shout out and thank you to everybody who picked up a piece of this new work from the Secret History of World War III, second round of negotiations, finally putting out some work here as I try and shorten this show, so giving me more time. So that is good. I got the show down to an hour last week. Let's keep moving towards these end goals here. Thank you, everybody, again, for picking one up. And thank you, Greek DX. Janny Surdis putting in an offer, which I just accepted, actually. Thank you. And I felt bad. Ile put in an offer. I was out all day yesterday. It was taken back. And then, Janny Surdis, I couldn't say no. And actually, I don't even want to say this, but I wanted to send my extra to Waffles. I'm going to send you another work, Waffles, because Waffles has sent me so much. We're going to see another work. So all to say, you guys are on the short list of just me sending you some works, Ile and Waffles. But Jenny Surdis is the first person who ever actually bid on a work of mine on Super Rare. So I couldn't say no to that. So all to say, thank you. And basically, what is this? This is combining a photo of paint with sampled paintings and also just screenshots of the news, all made on an iPhone, mastered in Photoshop. and just incorporating several techniques, and so, yeah, using the fill here and everything. Yeah, I'm excited about this series. So again, hugely encouraging and supportive to get that support from everybody. Thank you so much. And a big thank you also to Waffles, also known as Sincerely Kujeb, Sync 18, with the Pocobelli hair here that we saw from a previous PNG, I believe, pasted over top here. A Joy Division shirt sent over, one of one. That has graduated in my universe to my profile picture on X. So thank you. Huge thanks to Kujeb, who I owe a whole bunch of works to. I need to send some works to Kujeb. So you are, again, with Ilay on the short list there. Huge thank you. Just awesome. Comment/show. So we got a few here. Kyle Flemmer, so much respect and love for Cap'n. Indeed, Cap'n is a hit. And of course, for those that didn't see it, this is the work, Cap'n's work from last show. Just a rad artwork. Like, you see the value in the artwork here. And it's going to bring up an interesting conversation that's coming up in a few tabs. Teddy Schnaps, bro, bringing back the Dwarf Fortress style. I assume that's a video game. And I assume that's referring to Cap'n bringing back this kind of retro computer graphic style, I assume, is what's going on there. Thank you for the comment, Teddy. Ed Marola, hello, Poco friend. Always a pleasure when you review my art with your sharp eyes. Thank you, Ed. Also, the art versus capital A art is very interesting. I love the understanding that art is a real thing, part of everyday life and present in the mundane. Very important statement here. And I think, unfortunately, one of the effects of contemporary art getting so far out in a conceptual direction in the last, let's say, 30, 40 years is, I think, part of the public. I think it's disenfranchised part of the public. So that some parts of the public, if let's say you studied engineering or commerce, did your thing and then you're interested in art, but then you're getting like this super conceptual art that is supposed to be important but just doesn't speak to you. I think, unfortunately, what can happen to a certain amount of the public is they don't think art is a real thing. And it's a very important, like when I see this statement here, you know what I think of? I think of when I saw Philip Glass and Robert Wilson's Einstein on the Beach in Toronto in 2012. Half-empty theater, I might add. Half-empty theater. And shockingly. And I had chairs, like 10 chairs in every direction. I could sprawl. It's a 4-hour show, whatever. But the point is when I saw that work, this avant-garde work, it reminded me, I remember very clearly that how I was excited because it reminded me the avant-garde is a real thing. It's not some, nebulous, I know not what that, conceptual. It's not a reason. It's a real thing. It exists. Like avant-garde art when it's awesome, say in the case of Einstein on the Beach, that 4-hour opera. I mean, that is like, it's real. And to me, it was a bit of a reminder that the avant-garde is a real thing and how awesome that is. It's exciting and inspiring. And so let's continue with Ed's comment. The pedestal of fine arts and the elitism bias we often see around art spaces is dangerous. And I agree. It's unfortunate, is how I would put it. Maybe it is dangerous because what does that do? If a certain amount of the public is disenfranchised from art, which one could argue is a core, elemental part of the human experience, and they are disenfranchised from that because of what I call over-sophistication, what does that do? Like, does that actually? It probably does negatively impact society. Art ultimately is a humanizing force. It should help rekindle feeling, as I felt when I saw Einstein on the Beach. All of a sudden, I was inspired. I was moved, right? What happens when we reduce art to a bunch of reasons, right? So let's continue. I'm often confused. Yes, and you got the point instantly. Awesome. Great to hear, Ed. Great show. Cap'n is so good. Great analysis. So Cap'n just loved across the board here. Gravitopia. Wow, Master Cap, amazing artist, right? So one of the true highlight, great artists of this space. Totally agree. Kelly Burns, Great to hear from you. We got another comment, more in detail in the Twitter. We'll go to that one. Thank you, Kelly, thank you, Kelly Burns, for the comment. Aw heck, Joshua Sobel. I also completely agree with you, Adrian. The digital art stars of tomorrow are here today, clocking into their 9-to-5s, GMing. Right, because we saw, I think it was someone from Verseworks was sort of like, all we need is the artists to get us, our artists to get us to the next level of accessibility, where all of a sudden the art market will turn into this thing and we'll hit mainstream, accessibility and this sort of thing. Yeah, exactly. The artists are already here. I mean, what more do you need than this, say, Cap'n work here? Die with the most likes, it's like, again, I struggle to shorten this show because there's so much interesting art coming out. So the issue isn't, we don't need new artists, and new artists are going to come and they're welcome and everything. It's going to be great. But the artists are already here, as Joshua is agreeing with here and stating. The masses won't catch on until the larger narratives are considerately introduced. Interesting. Let's check back in a few years and exactly. I mean, this could happen in a month, it could happen in 6 months, it could happen in 6 years, it could happen in 20 years, maybe even longer. It could be in decades. I don't think it will be, because I think there's actually just too much real art going on, like as we saw with that Cap'n piece. That's just too exciting for too many people, is sort of my take. And there's only 16. That's a market, and it's only, maybe it takes a generation of young people who all of a sudden like that kind of art, who are like, you know what, enough of this, whatever you guys are trying to peddle here, we like this, and we're going to put it in our textbooks because it matters to us, right? So it really is a matter of time. Totally agree. Heck, awesome to hear from you. Runtune with a bit of a philosophical discussion here. We're discussing techne, so going to try and keep this as short as we can. It always surprises me that in these rigorous conversations about art, beauty, techne, Immanuel Kant never gets brought up. It's been a long time since I approached his text, The Critique of Judgment, so I won't waste our time pretending to be an expert, but as I recall, he makes incredibly useful analysis of our judgment of taste or beauty, or on beauty. And of course, he has a very famous, basically, aesthetic theory on beauty, which, again, there's too much reasoning in it for me. Because I've heard it before, and even in Berlin, I had an art consultant friend who's like, Adrian, you really have to know, Kant's theory of beauty, or aesthetic theory, is very influential and important. And it's just a bunch of reasons, though, and that's okay, and that's cool. But I start from the experience of the art itself. That is where I begin as far as my understanding. As Terence McKenna would say, the felt presence of immediate experience is where I kind of begin, and then I rationalize from there. Why does this feel significant? Let's say. So let's continue here, though, because just to get back to Runtune's point here, which we haven't really discovered yet. Ultimately, my takeaway, as I recall, was that the domain of craft and the domain of art are distinct from one another, and that while there may be crossover, ultimately these distinctions are made by the nature of purpose. Right, so, or telos, the telos, to use the Greek, or the end, the goal, the purpose, that for the sake of which. So, of course, now to understand a little bit, at least this is the framework I bring very quickly, Hegel was seen as kind of the response, like he was an idealist, so he was sort of seen as somewhat of a Platonist and then Kant, who was seen as more of the response to Aristotle, like almost the echo of Aristotle. Let's say both at what I think would be the beginning of the 19th century, maybe the end of the 18th century a little bit. German philosophy. So as far as this whole, I brought up here in a second here, ChatGPT. I think I brought it up. I may have actually got rid of it. I brought up that, the first lines of, Kant's work, just to give that sense of the language of both Kant and Hegel. I may have actually gotten rid of that tab. I did get rid of that tab. But all to say, maybe I could bring it up very quickly. I do want to keep these shows short. let's see, ChatGPT. Let's see, can't. Here we go. Okay, so let's finish Runetoon's point, then let's go. But again, this is semantics. As I recall, the domain of craft and the domain of art are distinct from one another, but they ultimately cross over until these distinctions are made by the nature of purpose. So I think what we're getting at here is, certain things are made by craft. And again, these words are slippery. Do we mean arts and crafts like papier-mâché? Or are we talking about the craft of building, back to the shoe? Craft of making a shoe, the techniques, the processes, what we might call the art, right? But I think to give the charity of interpretation, a great lesson from Plato's Crito, what I think Runetoon is getting at here is the distinction between, the craft of making something, and capital A art is the purpose. In art, we're trying to do something poetic, let's say, whereas with the shoe, we're trying to do something kind of functional and build something for your shoe. Again, I think this starts, so I would just say we're getting into weird semantic territory, which we could spend an entire show on. I actually think just discussing this, maybe we should. I'm not interested enough in Kant to do that, to be perfectly honest. But I'll show you why in a second. I brought it up on ChatGPT. But I just think there's a lot of, semantic slipperiness where it gets hard to kind of say too many things with these words meaning so many different things. Art means so many. So that's why I like the Greek. We just go with the Greek and it's like, it shows the art of something, but what do we mean? And the word often though, because we use the words almost interchangeably. And art, the art of war, as you will say here, and then art, capital A art. And we don't put a capital A on it. And what they share is a series of processes or techniques, or a process or a series of techniques that join together to get a certain result. Ultimately, what are artists? They are people that put together a series of processes, or techniques, I should say, a process, and that is their art, ultimately. And then you can try different kinds of processes. You can, so for one series, I'll have a certain process. For a different series, I'll have a different set of techniques. And then those come to, embody that series, as you see with Secret History of World War III there. Or with the Peloponnesian War, another series I did, add a different set of techniques or a process, right? So let's continue the comment here. We have a common language that uses the word art to describe anything that requires a skill or aesthetic, the art of war, the art of cooking, the art of shoemaking, but Kant makes a distinction between art and craft or design by underlying the function of art versus the function of craft, right? And then you get to the point of, again, I come from a different, don't forget, Kant's a romantic, capital R, romantic, so there was a very clear distinction between, high art and low art, which arguably doesn't exist as much. That box up there with the 808, to me, that's in a post-Duchamp world where you all of a sudden put the urinal on its side or I put the shoebox in a gallery, what's, is this, then you get back to this Kant talking about the purpose of the whatever. It seems like there was a very clear distinction between high and low art, poetry proper or the sublime, and, making shoes, which I don't think exists in the same way anymore. And I'm not sure it ever actually existed. Again, that's why I like my definition, frankly, of it's poetic, it's art with irrational input, things that make sense on an irrational level. That's what poetry is for me. That's the difference between a website and a painting. Is painting incorporates what I've titled another show, irrational variables, and things that just seem to work. Whether, and I'm kind of back to what is poetry at the core, the Odyssey, Shakespeare, it's simile, it's comparison, it's simile, metaphor. It's using like or as, or the wine dark sea, the rosy fingered dawn in the Odyssey, right? It's comparing, and so it's actually very kind of simple. So when Kant comes with all this stuff, I go, fine, but I just see a castle in the sky with a shaky foundation from my perspective. Everybody's free to think what they want, but that's why I don't discuss Kant, because I don't find it particularly interesting. Actually, I do, and I want to be familiar and I want to get more close, but I don't need to, I'm not going to struggle too far with Kant. I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting input, as we'll see in a second here. Let's just finish. But Kant makes a distinction between art and craft or design by underlining the function of art versus the function of craft. So a very Aristotelian thing. What is the telos? Just like the telos, the goal, of the organism or of the human organism, the purpose is to become an adult. This is very kind of Aristotelian thinking, the four causes and everything that I haven't reviewed in a long time, that there is a telos, that, say the human organism, it does have a certain end goal, which is to become a adult human, right? And there's these stages of development. What is the telos, right? So this is very, again, Aristotelian. This is as far as I can take us, Runeton says. I need to reread Kant. We all need to read Kant. I guess, again, I think we should be familiar with it. I wouldn't like, and here's just very, very quickly here. So what's the first line of Kant and Hegel? What are the first lines of their texts? Just for the sake of argument, like how do they open up their most famous works? Here's Kant, The Critique of Pure Reason. Human reason, this is the first line of the text, has the peculiar fate in one species of its cognitions that it is burdened with questions which it cannot dismiss, for they are posed by the nature of reason itself, but which it also cannot answer, for they transcend every capacity of human reason. So what does this mean? Very quickly, human reason, because you could argue animals reason too. A dog at a certain level is reasoning. It's like, I want to eat that, and this I don't want to eat, and I want to go outside. This is, you could argue, a kind of cognition. So human reason has the peculiar fate in one species of its cognitions, in one way of its thinking, that it is burdened, again, huge interpretation. Is it a burden? Isn't this we could argue it's should be thankful. With questions which it cannot dismiss, with questions about these things, is it a burden? There's all sorts of interpretation, slippery language. So the burden, though, for Kant, employing the charity of interpretation, is, hey, there's questions that our reason creates, a branch of our thinking and cognition that creates, that we can't dismiss. We've created, questions that our reason creates questions that we can't dismiss. And they're posed by reason itself, but reason cannot answer them, for they transcend reason. Okay? So again, I just see, okay, interesting, but just from me personally, there's too many assumptions in here for me personally. This is putting too much faith in thinking and reason, as that's going to solve all the mysteries of the universe. I much prefer, again, I'm kind of back to Socrates. Where are you going? I'm going to the port. There's a little party. Oh, cool. A dialogue between two people. And then it grows and grows and the mystery gets, final point on this is I was thinking to myself, philosophy is a strange word. Love of wisdom. Again, I think coming from the Pythagoreans in the 500 BC. Love of wisdom, it's a weird little domain. It's it's kind of like the almost a secular wisdom tradition to a certain degree, I'd argue, in the West, or out of ancient Greece, call it what we will. So what Kant is doing here, I would argue, is a different project. It's related to, okay, we're trying to figure out stuff with our brain, but is this about the love of wisdom? Which is a pretty weird, esoteric, actually, project. This is more about how far can we get with just abstraction alone, right? You could call it philosophy, but it's just a different project, and maybe that's fair enough. It's changed in the 1,000 years since. But in retrospect, we group it all together as the same project called philosophy, and then we take classes thinking, okay, this is, the evolution. But I'd actually argue, back to almost Kant's point, which is ultimately an Aristotelian one, there are different goals here. The goal of, say, ancient Greek philosophy is, how do you live a good life? How do you, what do we actually know? A very skeptical kind of, do we know anything? And if we do, what can we know as far as we can think that we know it? Here, it's like, where's the humility? Oh, I'm just making this huge declaration here. And there's no sense of, to me, it's just like, here's the truth from the philosopher that we're all supposed to believe. So it's just a different kind of way of being that when I'm reading, and that's just one line. How many more assumptions are going to be in the next line, and then the next line, and pages and chapters and whatever? So then it just becomes about okay, based on what? Kant finally, was famously never had sexual intercourse, as far as I understood. He stayed within 5 kilometers, famously, or something to this effect, of where he worked his entire life. So are you gonna all of a sudden say, okay, this person has the theory of art that we must all agree because he thought his way through it? I just start from a different step. So that's kind of my sense of no, I don't feel like I need to spend hours and hours with Kant. I'll read the ChatGPT summary, preferably. And we actually have that here. We don't have time to go through it all. I just want to bring one more point, though, up, which is Hegel's Phenomenology of Spirit. How does it start? What is the first line of this masterpiece by Hegel? Finally, again, these are, this is the time of romantic genius. What is the year on this? I'm guessing 1819 or something. Shall we look? Just Hegel, Phenomenology of Spirit, date 1807. Okay, so we're talking Romanticism, capital R, we're in the heat of it. This is how it begins. In the case of philosophical work, it seems not only superfluous, but inappropriate and misleading to begin with an explanation of the end the work aims to achieve, as well as the means by which it aims to achieve it. So what is he saying here? When we're doing philosophy, it seems not only superfluous, but inappropriate and misleading to begin with an explanation of what we're trying to do, the end of the work, what the end of the work aims to achieve, the end or purpose, the telos, the goal, as well as how we intend to do it. This is inappropriate, according to Hegel. So am I going to struggle through the phenomenology of spirit? And maybe I need to go through further, but there's only so many texts you can read. I would rather read the summary. And I guess at the end of the day, I'm incredibly skeptical of a lot of, again, this is kind of canonical, without question, in philosophy departments everywhere. But just from a personal perspective, I'm not living my life according to these sentences, according to these words. Is this promoting thinking? Again, this is a different project, as far as I'm concerned. This is speculation. It's a similar project, but, again, you could say the pre-Socratics were just speculating on reality too, but there just seems to be too much faith in reason, which makes sense. This is from the Enlightenment, right? So, and as an artist, it's who studied surrealism. We've seen what happened with World War II, World War I, the Dadaists responding to World War I, and the reason and the failure of reason. Can we go to these texts and start saying how much credulity can we give them? Now, unfortunately, we do not have time to go through all this. I did bring up the Critique of Judgment. Also, you can get a summary on Kant's theory of aesthetics from ChatGPT. And here, the famous part of it that I do remember is the art for art's sake argument, judgment of taste, disinterested pleasure. For Kant, I'll just look at one part, though, because I think it's important. It's right at the top. For Kant, the judgment of beauty is based on disinterested pleasure. This means that the pleasure derived from perceiving something as beautiful is not influenced by a personal interest, desire, or practical purpose. The appreciation is purely contemplative. Again, a very romantic notion. And I look at my secret history of World War III, like in my ideal of ideals, it actually has a very practical purpose. If all of a sudden you start getting news and then artists start responding to the news and transform the narrative, a kind of mirroring transformation as we see with Warhol and taking iconography, this alchemical transformation that artists do of icons that we've already experienced, that's interesting. And you know what? That's practical, I would argue. So I'm kind of back to like, this is interesting, but art for art's sake, like, oh, do we live in this world anymore? So that's why I start with just very basic, what's the Greek? Okay, what can we say? And I don't go too far. I'm not going to try and build some castle in the sky, because I almost think it's a fruitless endeavor to a certain degree, but I'm very skeptical of what we can know. Science works. And that's all. We don't even know why. When you really dig down and you watch all the lectures on the history of science, which I have, there's brilliant ones from the great courses, you get to these lectures which are like, we don't even know why mathematics and science work well together. We just know that they do, but we don't know why. Okay, like that's like science just works, so we go with it. Like that's where we are philosophically with science. And so I don't know if Kant and Hegel, I think there's too much hubris, frankly, for them to be at that point. They believe. And I mean, okay, fair enough. What do I know about Kant? His main famous thing is a critique of pure reason. So he's saying what we can't know, ultimately, right? So maybe we'll leave it there, though. Yeah, like, what do I know about Kant is kind of like my kind of final thing on this. But I go with just my thoughts. This is a journal. It is not a philosophy class, although I do intend on going back to the early Platonic works. Let's continue. Or to the Platonic corpus there. But we will, Zhu Yang watching, awesome, with the classic Zhu Yang loading. Filippo Francocci, thanks for featuring my work, Adrian. As you mentioned, I began the painting with randomness and refined the details with brushes. Reminds me of Salvador Dali's ink drawings, where you'll see a lot of spray. I think I had them up here before we went to here. It reminds me of Dali's ink works, later works, where I think he was incorporating some of what we were learning from John Cage and the abstract expressionists, which were all the rage in the 50s, when I think Dali was making some of these ink works. Similar process. Put down a bunch of ink. What do you see? And then start drawing around that. Very fun way to work, very cool way to work using irrational and rational techniques, we could argue. Thank you for the comment there, Filippo. I'm honored to be on your show. Thank you. I love the process because it often yields surprising results. Awesome. Dropkick, thank you for the comment. Kelly Burns, love this one, Adrian, and the last one with Die with the Most Likes, tapping into new realms here. It's awesome to see a kind of scary as well. Joy Division, Psilocybin, Terrence McKenna, so much great stuff. Go, man. Love it. Awesome. Glad you're enjoying that. This journal, that's the beautiful thing about the journal format. You can really go in any direction you want. Maestro Museum, awesome episode. Thanks for the great work. My absolute pleasure, Maestro. Thank you for watching. Skull Takes. Great show. NFTs are dead. It's digital art or digitized art, in my opinion. Yeah, I don't think NFTs, again, someone else brought this point up a long time ago. Like, we don't call it, credit card art or check art or cash art as we do. Like, we don't refer to how the process of it being paid. It's digital art, ultimately. And I think that's probably what's going to stay. NFTs, of course, have the stigma. It seems very historical, or it's already starting to sound like an old concept. I don't know about you, but NFT just as a concept, it sounds very 2021 in my universe. So it's interesting. Let's continue. Shinobu Takuru, I hope you one day will scratch one of my pieces. That is what the community is for, Shinobu. So feel free to drop a link there. Try, once a week max, put a work in there. You're more than welcome to. That is how you get on the radar. K's Works, it was a great watch. Thank you so much, Oyaniki. And just awesome. Continuing on, First Syndrome, High Artist Journal Community, and we have a AI, I think it's AI, video of dogs with look like 1960s haircuts there. Very interesting. Ballad to Wigged Dog. So wigged dogs. Interesting. I assume that's AI, but I do not know. Retro Manny. I love Albert's art. Hope you enjoy it too. So here, what we looks like kind of digital painting, kind of in the comic book style, kind of watercolor, but we see the pencil here, so obviously done on Procreate. You see how powerful digital art tools are. Very cool, very nice. Thank you for posting that, Manny. Ilya Barabin, my home studio. And here we see the airbrush at work, the tool of the moment, the airbrush at work. Ilya Barabin, thank you for posting that. Skull Takes. This is one of my pieces for the horse trading event, Horse of July, hosted by Texadelic and John Cates. I have some left if you have a horse to trade. And here, so of course, John Cates pioneering the Western glitch art style, and of course they do the horse trading. Victoria Whitime, sensitive objects, part of an idyllic quest to reveal the sensitive character of metal. So here are some examples. Interesting project there. That's on Zora. Black Line, an animated abstract. And Texadelic, another horse trading work. And there we go. And we are back to last show. So thank you everybody for posting. Rad work here from Kurt Hustle Collective, which I think we saw last show. We have another one this show. Into the comments we go. Santiago. Everyone believes Tezos is being paid attention and we're growing, and soon a Tezos summer and madness is coming. I actually do kind of feel that way too. It is starting to feel like the animal spirits are starting to light up a bit on Tezos art. And it's interesting because the art, crypto has been very kind of up and down. I'd argue the digital art scene, particularly based out of Tezos and then also Zora, it hasn't really skipped a beat. It hasn't missed a step. Like, it kind of just continues pushing through. Do I have a way to check this idea that a Tezos summer is coming? No. Do you have a way to check I've been bullish nonstop 3 years, even if when it could sound absurd? Yes. Yes, you can look at Santiago's timeline there. Here's another example. Like, I'm seeing a few more kind of sales like this. Here's Kristen Roos. So nice to see a significant secondary sale. And I mean, this beautiful work here by Kristen Roos, I think sold for $200 or $300. We can check really quickly here. On secondary, 300 Tezos for an edition of 25. Hopefully, okay, we are back and there is the work. So 300 Tezos edition of 25. Not bad at all. So continuing on, Unknown Collector, while everyone else seems to go up in flames, while everything else seems to go up in flames, Tezos rises from the ashes like a phoenix. It's kind of, there is, again, it seems like Tezos, the power, it's very bullish on what we've been discussing here for the last 2 years, which is the art is significant. And if it is truly significant, it will stand the test of time. And I think this is kind of what's going on here. This got a lot of attention, 70,000 views, incredible. Super Rare John from Super Rare. So I think one of the founders of Super Rare. Are people still minting on Tez? If so, curious why. And there were a ton of responses. I got a couple here. It is a genuine question, as we'll see here. And so I think it's very simple, actually, which is the reason why people are still minting on Tez is because artists follow the money. And the easiest way to get money in digital art is to put your work on Tezos. And the reason is because the prices are very low and the fees are very low. So there's an automatic market, and art is cheap. You can get a cap in for $10, like we saw last episode. And it costs you no fees, right? And so everybody wins. And that's why the editions are a big thing on Tezos. So the reason why is because artists are making money. That is the reason why. Why are artists minting on Zora? Because they are making money. It is that simple, I would argue. I call it the beating heart of this scene. So this got a huge response. And Unknown Collector, most interesting art-related projects happening than elsewhere, referring to Tezos, and more in comparison to their size, to be frank, really trying to connect digital art to the world, pushing great curation, art experimentation to the front. When a platform like Object, and now also the Tez Foundation invests so much time and energy to genuinely support art and culture, they deserve support back. I still think it's about the art itself, though. And the reason the art is good is because the money is real. There's a very important relationship between art and money. that exists because it creates incentive. And so there's, especially if you live in somewhere like South America, where all of a sudden, if you're making $30 a day, like Zwozo or Nuv 1914 is, I mean, that's a paycheck. As far as I understand, $30 American, that's not a bad paycheck. So, so let's continue. Our also still best alternatives to L2s. So Tezos still a better alternative to some of the L2s, still not brought on the idea of centralized single point of failure chains for fine art, which get criticized a lot, these layer 2s, as being too centralized. Rather risk losing provenance on Tezos, where things were born naturally and a real culture exists, than supporting L2 money machines. Interesting, still think ETH main is the chain for art when it comes to provenance, which is interesting, but my fave alternative, definitely Tezos. Very interesting. Why Sigma Toad? Mates, let's give the lad a benefit of the doubt, because a lot of people were harsh on Super Rare John. It seems to give in to pettiness, understandable when questions like these are asked. I am unclear as to what promoted the inquiry, but hey, I am here for it. So, in a sense, I guess it's just a cultural difference between the chains, and I think it's, to Super Rare John's credit, just got my object collecting account yesterday, and it's almost like all crypto. Like, you got to do it to understand it. And so finally, I would think Super Rare John already had a Tezos account, but apparently not. So now collecting on object. So happy ending and all is good. Rata. As a crypto artist and collector, I've tested many networks, and Tezos is the most friendly, stable, and fast. And it's the notifications on Object as well. Object has an excellent website. Someone was criticizing, I don't think I brought it up here. I may have, but I don't think I brought it up. Someone was really criticizing the UI on Object, which I thought was like, this is like, I've called it like almost a perfect website. Anyways, let's continue. I wish I could collaborate, but I can't. It's just my user experience. So Rata loving the Tezos over there. Also minting works on ETH. Jedi Wolf. Recently I came across statements from ordinal maxis that struck me as manipulative, aiming to undermine Ethereum and NFTs by citing external technical aspects like IPFS usage or interplanetary file server usage. In other words, having to link to a separate, decentralized solution where the images are. Where I think you have to pay fees, if I'm not mistaken. I dismiss such voices. No solution is perfect. There are always trade-offs for ordinals as well. And they go into it. And there's a very important lesson here. Because the person is saying, well, actually, ordinals maxis, ordinals lack official support from Bitcoin Core dev team. Actually, they see ordinals as exploiting a vulnerability in Bitcoin Core. That's true. Bitcoin's L1 wasn't designed for storing assets on chain. It's intended as a payment system and store of value. Vulnerabilities for exploiting vulnerabilities for unintended on-chain asset storage, and Bitcoin can be seen as a form of hijacking. Without official support and an overall consensus regarding ordinals, the future of their art on BTC is uncertain. And it got me thinking. All of these blockchains, I would argue, your future is uncertain. IPFS has, as this person points out, there is no perfect solution here. Ordinals is not necessarily going to be there forever. The IPFS, ultimately it seems like at some point servers are kind of, even Ethereum, it sounds like some people will talk about how, if Amazon Web Services went down, what would happen to Ethereum? It's interesting. I don't know. Don't claim to know. But I'll tell you the lesson, what I thought to myself. I talk here about digital artists making physical art. Here is a reason for you to make physical art. Because if all this stuff crashes, what are you left with? Another reason to make physical art, as far as I'm concerned. So, interesting comment. JPEG's twin, random thought this morning as I'm scrolling the timeline. Being maxi anything seems like such a self-defeating way to go about things. At some point, you'll find yourself arguing and defending your standpoint just because you've self-identified with the community of that particular thing you're maxi about. Why impose limits on yourself? Exactly. From the artist's perspective, there's no need, I would argue, to be tribal on your blockchain. It is self-defeating, I would argue. I'd agree with JPEG's twin here. I'd argue what you want to do is use actually be multi-chain as an artist, a digital artist, and make physical art of your digital work. It gives you more credibility as an artist, I would argue, and there's more resilience there. Then maybe, who knows? Maybe the physical work is what actually survives the longest, or rather than your ordinal, Adrian, right? So I thought that provoked some interesting thoughts. I was like, the importance of physical work was reminded to me. Demon Ego. My 2 physical works sold on CrowdMuse are ready to go to their collectors, and they are leaving tomorrow. So there they are. Look at how beautiful the shipping situation is. Look at that certificate of authenticity. Demon Ego doing a wonderful job there. That is so important. Even a cool UPC code, or QR code, I should say. Kwampa, thanks for the love. The nearest shop I can get a canvas from is 250 kilometers away. Thanks to digital art, I don't have to rely on art supplies. I can carry them anywhere I want. Awesomely. And how true is that? And a work in progress from Kwampa, awesome artist. Here is Dan Control showing on a screen, showing physically. More cool stuff here. Good morning from the Meat Show. Here is Hermipe Pixel Art, a artist, a very cool pixel artist. Look at these physicals. I don't know if you can see that. Look at how cool this looks. So again, and if this was purely digital, would we have the same effect? I would say no. It's way more powerful physically here. So I continue to be excited by the physical here. I just continue. Look at how great it looks. Even the signing underneath, very cool. Xerox, trust the process. As you see this GIF developing here and here, like those old dot matrix computers, line by line, loud. So almost looking like using an old computer style or computer printer. Putting it on paper, very smart. Sabato, it's the last weekend to catch Barbie World Breakdown. Here's actually the free work, I believe, that you can get so if you go to Sabato's page, click on the link here, one more week, and you just got to love this pixelated Barbie here that is completely taken apart, disintegrated into pixels. Beautiful, beautiful. This is just kind of funny. Walk here, Julie Meritu's painting versus Walk Studio. There is a similarity there. Walk, even in the color, hilariously. Victor Acevedo, Art Now LA, just published a review about the DNA 4th of 4 digital art retrospective, 1975 to present. Here's the website. So here, just some works, and as you see, you see the impact of Photoshop on what I call the first generation of digital art, especially on the 80s and 90s. You really see that here. And this, I think, also Victor Acevedo made this work here, which I think using some 3D software as well. So just interesting. Human Boy. Look at this. So I think we've learned something very important from Human Boy's experiments. When you put the flashing images of different images, that works the best on the algorithm. Here we see, again, coming back to form with, over 20,000 views, 253 retweets. And it seems like the reach of digital art is declining a little bit, interestingly. You're not getting as much bang for your buck. 253 retweets should be higher, more views than 20,000, right? Here is Martin Bruce, actually, on Zora. Really interesting digital art piece here by Martin Bruce. Fits the screen beautifully here. That has only been minted, let's see, 5 minted so far, available for another 27 days. That's on Zora. Here is Hasdrubal Waffle, also known as Kujeb, Sync 20. So putting out a few works, little mini Terminator here. So to be finished would be a relief. So there's one. Love the eyes on this one, Sync 19. This went to Mikey Wilson. I think I saw this minted. I didn't have any Tez in my wallet. And this was, look at this. Hasdrubal Waffle lists this for 2 Tezos 30 cents, his one of one, hilariously. So Mikey Wilson, very quick on the draw there. I saw that being minted. I missed it. I had like a Tezos 80 or something in my wallet, hilariously. Rat Cloak with a one of one, edition of one. Let's see if we can zoom in here. So again, playing with a couple of different brushes here. kind of like an oil stick on the edges here, and then kind of a paintbrush in the back. Kind of a wild, another kind of surreal work by Rat Cloak, kind of dark. 2750 by 3000 and sold for 150 Tezos. Nice sale, a 1 of 1. Here is Uxine, and here just kind of the sketchbook style, right? Just putting, here's the weather or your phone. Here, just various different things. We saw the thank you, have a good day. Here are some fryers. So very cool. Very nice posts there. 15,000 views, pretty good. Here's Bazaya, who of course I follow. That is a glitch on X when you load up a bunch of tabs. If you want to win, bet on me. So kind of a weird, almost a crucifix here looking work with MF mask here and kind of a trading card like structure, even in the name here. So interesting piece there from Bazaya. Here is Kurt Hustle Collective. It's 2 minutes long, so we can't watch the whole thing. But a kind of a parody of the news here. So really cool music as ever. And it keeps going. So just beautiful, beautiful work here. Hilarious soundtrack. 5 Tezos. I picked one up actually yesterday. You have selected news. Here's Yuri J. I think we saw the work in progress. This is now on Zora. 6 minted so far, and this is available for another 26 days. And here you see a tree and what looks like almost like a fire truck or something, maybe a park bench. Interesting size or canvas here, ratio. Here's another super interesting piece by Yuri J. This is of a house. You almost get a window into Yuri J's process here. The outlines of our lives, as I was calling it the other show here, and which maybe get filled in. So kind of a window from Yuri J. And here, Yuri J, this is just a variation. Don't take it seriously. Well, I can't help myself because it still looks pretty cool. We see the interesting repetition of layers here that Yuri J we saw on the last work here with the lamp. And it's tempting to see maybe with the chair over here too. So just, and here with maybe a little bit of repeating layers. So interesting work there. Here is Goyong Arts, and this, usually these are moving, but this is just a still here, maybe a work in progress, or maybe an older work, not sure. Beautiful work here with these kind of pixelated masks. Here's Nuv 1914 doing what looks like F1, and people cheering and everything, hilarious. So new subject matter here, 26 Tezos edition of 1. This is also Nuv 1914 on Zora. Look at this piece. Playing with the teddy bear vibe and doing this almost very minimal color scheme. And unfortunately, I can't see how much. It's like blue on blue. You just have to hit the mint there. So I can't tell how many have been minted. It looks like a few comments, though. This is a new artist I haven't seen before, Buju Bunang. And check this out. This is also on Zora. 36 is their volume. Oh, there is. Not sure if that's copyright or not. Anyway, pretty cool. Maybe it's AI. A very interesting pixel artist here. Buju Bunang, that's again on Zora, 3 minted only. Here's Argyle, Duck Duck Zoos, and this came out about a month ago. Completely missed it. Interesting Escher-like, MC Escher-like patterning here on the left, and very cool, just pixel art piece overall. This wavy pattern also, the frame. Edition of 13, sold for only, I saw a tweet, only 15 Tezos. Pretty good. Anis Abdon. Here is Liquid City, playing with Game Boy. Seemingly color scheme here. Doesn't it look like it? Yeah, there it is. Game Boy color hashtag. With the city there. Here is Kikilo, Blue Sky. So very interesting pixel art here. Kind of reminds me of Murakit and Suisoichi. These kinds of like different kinds of pixels. And nice kind of movement here as well. Another work by Ripcash. We saw the red, and I want to say, can't remember the other color, maybe red and gray. Now we have the blue and gray, right? Again, these could all be physicals. Very cool work here from Ripcash. Here is Sabato, Open Edition, Blue Screen of Death, of course, referring to the news event. And here, new write-up here, and playing with the QR code that is animated using Deluxe Paint 4, I believe. Yes, it is. Emulated on an emulated Amiga 1200 computer. So cool there. Postmodern Ouroboros with a cool kind of play on a screen. 100,000 views. My word, that is impressive. And then the great Haiti Rocket Master Blaster. This is an edition of 1. I'm the Master Blaster, and very beautiful work here. I don't even know what it is, but it's beautiful. The colors are beautiful. Just rad. Work from Haiti Rocket. Here's Kristen Roos, new work, color bars. So let's open this and see. So here it is at full, so quite a large work for Kristen Roos, actually. And yeah, 15 Tezos and edition of 15. Here's another work, Renato, Be the Rainbow. So very interesting kind of low resolution artworks, aren't there? And look at this rainbow. It's quite beautiful as a stream and this interesting kind of 45-degree angle grid. Here is exchange.art and kind of a pixel art work here. And is it Taka, the name of the artist? Taka's Bounce, Taka Shoshi being the artist, and a reserve of $90 or half a sol. Cool work there. Here's some cool works by Françoise Gamma that came out a few weeks ago. Here, I thought this was a video. Maybe it's just a GIF. And the others are videos. So here is the first one. Interesting, kind of smaller. Kind of looks like playing with the glitch ROMs. Here's some audio. This is a video. Very interesting, and here's just a snippet of the third. It's almost like a glitched out video game, and glitching out the audio too, maybe. What's funny is I feel like I recognize the audio there. I'm not sure what game that's from, but I feel like I recognize the audio, weirdly. Here is DJ Kiro. That was Françoise Gamma. Here's Kiro, and we'll see if there's any volume. No. This is on Rodeo, which I think is Foundation's kind of version of Zora's app. I think it's just a free mint sort of thing, similar structure. So not sure. You might be able to get some low mint, only one minted or none. So you might be able to get some good, because not too many people are using Rodeo right now, so you might be able to get some low editions for very cheap. Interestingly, here is Zozo. Just drifting. Always super original and interesting. This is on Zora, 2 minted only. So very interesting. Here's another one by Zozo on Object. You see the cat on the chair. Kind of a different kind of piece from Zozo, doing a cat. So very fun. There, 2 interior design cat, edition of 1, selling for 30 Tezos. Pretty good. Here's another one, Sin, also selling for 30 Tezos. So Zozo putting out like at least a work a day. Doing very well. You can see why. So just super original digital art here from Zozo. 6-second clip on loop. Interesting title, Sin. There's the snake maybe, Garden of Eden. Here is Uyo66 Bloodbath. Let's go. So again, I'm just going to have to put less works in to get that 40-minute to 45-minute ideal I am pursuing here on this show. So Uyo66, another beautiful work. Bloodbath, this is on Object, kind of a different feel for Uyo, who usually has a pretty illustrative style. Here is Axstone on Super Rare. So reserve price of 2.2, and let's see if we can make this bigger. And there it is. So really cool artist on Super Rare, puts out work occasionally that I see. Cool piece. Kind of a sci-fi looking situation. Not exactly sure. Cool illustration. Black Mesa X by Axstone. Here's Ezra Eslin, Boys Don't Cry. This was minted July 17th, so not that long ago. I don't think we've looked at it because I don't remember all these little devil figures. So a new one. And there's Depression, Kill Me Please, Supermarket. So there's the Ghosts. And so another cool one from Ezra Eslin. Starting bid of 0.66 ETH. And here is someone called Fiedler, which I saw. I don't know if someone posted this in the community. I saw this online. This on Foundation. See if it loads up. Here it is. So cool animated illustration here. All sorts of logos in the background. Sold for 0.5 ETH. And this is from June 7th, 2023. So this is a year old, but I'm not sure we've seen this artist. Fiedler. Cool. And here is Jake Studios. This is on Zora. Gatilio, 13 minted so far. So cool animated illustration from Jake Studios. And here's another one, Heilang Say Heaven. Cool, almost person-made of pixelated drawn clouds here. And the mirror turning into a Lucifer-like figure. This is an edition of 1, now at 20 Tezos. Interesting, Atelier 407, who we haven't looked at for a while. They put out a series 40 of 40, so here is just a snippet, I think, of some of the works in this series, and sold out, minted out, by the way, impressively. Here's Lorna Mills playing with yellow right now, and here, as you see on her Instagram, goes according to color oftentimes. Here is Mumble Boy, and interesting combination of a little bit of drawing here. So kind of a different feel in this Mumble Boy. Not all photo collage. Interesting piece. Edition of 2 for 8 Tezos. And here's an edition of 1 for 12 Tezos. Also, I think it's Loft in Space, or is it Lost in Space? Let's see. Loft in Space, indeed. Huge file. 6,000 by 5,000. And here's Psychofuturist. Will this be in the test? Kind of a wild kind of CGI-like animation. Another cool one from Psychofuturist on edition of 10 for 10 Tezos, and selling quite a few actually for 5. So almost selling out here. Maybe it's listed on secondary for 10 Tezos. So selling out at 5 Tezos. Here's Walk, Abra, I think part of the Pokemon series, if I'm not mistaken. Another digital artwork from Walk. Here's Ex-Mortal. Beautiful repetition here. Lonely. So really fantastic glitch here from Ex-Mortal. This is really beautiful glitching. Just the double and the difference in the double and just the texture, really nicely done. Sean Luke Dragonaut, interesting. So playing more with this kind of patterning here. Cool colors and edition of 7. Here is Renki, J.R. Ogura. So interesting work here. We saw a similar piece last episode. This is a new one. Here's Lena Eckert with a piece, an animated abstract here. So we saw that super distorted one that was super cool abstract. Here's another abstract, so super cool there. And continuing on, Sulkian, a remix on Zora, using a lot of CGI, very surreal kind of artist. Sulkian, I think I'm going to see him in Argentina. Here's No Hygiene as we go into AI, very experimental AI. This is called Bird. This is 35 Tezos on Object, edition of 1. And here, just wild AI artwork. This, I'm not sure if this was posted anywhere. Also by No Hygiene. Not sure if that's raw AI. That would be pretty amazing. Santiago, this is on Super Rare. And did we see this work? I'm not sure. We may have, but I don't really remember it. Quite cool. This went for half an ETH. Beautiful. $1,700. Minted on... So, super rare. Super rare. So, super rare's back. Santiago selling for half an ETH here. Nice work. Very cool. Here's, we were discussing Ripcash doing all these iterations. Santiago putting this out, kind of like a nice black and white version. It's like an iteration of a previous work or a work that's unreleased. Very cool. Here is Olivera Durdovic, Sentinel Superstars. I believe AI and painting. Very original use of AI. Here, as we go into the physicals, Shomio Take, Very edgy work here, as you see in this painting. And again, using kind of airbrush and spray paint. Very wild work from It's Not Gallery posted. Bubachik Mattia. We've looked at a ton of this person's work, and now we're seeing some of the elements just kind of deconstructed, but this is 2018. Interestingly beautiful. I love this piece. It's from 2019. Some of my favorite works of this artist. This is beautiful. Didn't realize these were so early. And here's Gregoria Zanardi, oil paint, and it looks like the Hunter S. Thompson is what it looks like there. Beautiful portrait, isn't it? Nice oil painting. You could almost stop there. And speaking of stopping, this video is going to glitch out soon if I don't stop it. Noah Verrier. My oil painting of champagne in a cup of noodles. Very contemporary looking. And here's Die with the Most Likes. Feed on the phone. All influencers become one. So they're feeding here. And finally, David R. Hales. Still needs a title. Watercolor and Ink 2024. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. And here is Filippo Francocci, my first self-portrait. Very nice, Filippo. Very cool physical work. That's your show, my friends. Thank you for joining me. And until next time, when the show shall be shorter, take care.